Welcome back to New Day. A majority of people just like you feel comfortable with the brutal interrogation methods used by the CIA against detainees after 9/11. That is the fact of a poll coming out from the Pew Research Center. The numbers are right in front of your face right now. 51% of Americans find the methods to be justified. Only 29% don't agree with them. Let's bring in Phil Mudd. You've been hearing from a lot of people who say, I knew somebody who was in the program, I worked there, but I wasn't with the program, I kind of knew things. This is different. He is a CNN counterterrorism analyst, but he is a former deputy director of the Counterterrorism Center at the CIA. You know what was going on there, good, bad, ugly, and you know who knew. So the first question for you is a softball. What do you think of these poll numbers saying that the American people agree with what the CIA did, and even basically an even split, let's put up, provided intelligence that prevented attacks? Yes, 42, no, 43. The decision to release the committee report, split. Right decision, 42, wrong decision, 43. What do these numbers mean to you, Mr. Mudd?
Well, I think the most interesting thing to me is not what these numbers say. We're in 2014 when military diplomatic intelligence efforts have decimated the adversary that murdered 3,000 people 13 years ago. Can you imagine this poll if we had done it on September 12th? That was the environment in which CIA established a program that was authorized by the Department of Justice and the Congress. So these numbers 13 years later, in an environment where we're worried about things like Christmas shopping and the decline in the stock market, to me tell me more about what we would have said 13 years ago than even about what we say today.
Is it fair to say that that emotional response to that situation put the CIA in a position where it was not completely prepared to do what it was being asked to do, and that led to mistakes?
Sure, I think the CIA response to this indicates that, and I would agree with that. The intelligence system, as anybody, as a traditional intelligence officer will tell you, includes three basic components. You collect intelligence, that's spies in the field. You disseminate it, that's you send it to places like the Department of State, the White House, and the Pentagon. And then people like me take all this stuff out there, intercepted communications, information from spies, and put it together into a narrative, into a story. Take a hard left. In 2002, when we captured our first detainee, that's Abu Zubaydah. Now, in addition to those responsibilities, you create secret prisons overseas and you start interrogating people. It was an area that we weren't familiar with back then.
The idea of Dick Cheney coming out and saying, I would do it all again, it was all fine, that is part of the political fight that's going on now because of how this initial report came out. But let me ask you, at no time, regardless of whether or not the DOJ said it was okay or not, people in and around the program didn't feel like this is too much what we're doing. This is torture what we're doing, no matter what we're being told. None of that common sense hit anybody?
Excuse me, common sense? You
Yes.
have the majority of the American people still saying this is okay. We went to the people who determine what U.S. statutes say. They were clear. I personally spoke to members on both sides of the aisle in the Congress. They told me either okay or is this it? In other words, aren't you doing more? The mood of the population is reflected by the American Security Service. The mood of the population is this is okay, this is more than okay, and by the way, if we ever see another jumper from the 100th floor in a building in New York, it's on you. You want to know what that's like, Chris? We were dealt a hand of deuces, and we ran the table in the casino. I thought it was great work.
I saw the jumpers that day. I understand the emotionalism of the situation. There's no question about that. But that's also not perhaps the best mind to be making decisions, right? We don't want to act at our most emotional.
It's the only mind we had, dude.
The DOJ may have said it was okay, but you didn't feel that anything that was going on was over the line, that was actual torture by any other definition.
No, I felt that the measures were tough. I knew that we would pay someday. By this sort of water cooler at the CIA, we talked about it all the time. We talked about what we called endgame. That is, we began conversations early on with the White House saying, when the prisoners that we hold no longer have intelligence value, what do we do with them? We are not jailers. We are interrogators. We are intelligence professionals. And we knew part of that endgame personally would be judgments about us and judgments that history would make without living in the time. The biggest problem here is not documentary evidence. that's reviewed by a congressional committee that never spoke with people like me. It is trying to relive the time and saying how, when you're told by the president, the vice president, the National Security Council, the Department of Justice, and both sides of the aisle in the Congress, how can you relive that moment and say what you did was wrong? We tried to reflect the will of the people.
So you're saying that your friends ran away from you in the aftermath then, because there are two questions. One is, why did you do it? You've answered that. The next one is, did you tell people what you were doing? Did they know? Right now, you've got politicians saying you either didn't tell us or you went farther than you said you were going. Is that true?
I think let's take those two questions. We went down to the Congress, and I was among them. Again, it's not a very complicated briefing. I've done 1 million briefings in my life. Here's 10 techniques. We use flexible walls. We use chokeholds. We use open-fingered slaps. We use sleep deprivation. I know it's brutal, but it's pretty simple. I run down the list. This is what we do. There's a couple things happening here. First, why didn't you ask the people who ran the committees? Porter Goss, the former chairman of the committee, later the CIA director, said, hey, nobody in this investigation asked me, a former congressman. I was chairman of the committee. Yeah, they told me. So we could have resolved this question by simply asking the people who were there.
So you're saying that the people who needed to know knew, and there were no blind spots about the CIA. The last question is this, then. You're in the report, and you are used as part of the CIA machine that was spinning what this program was about to the media to make it something that it wasn't. Is that a fair charge? Were you a spinmeister for the CIA selling us on a program we didn't really understand?
Let me put you on the hot seat, Chris. How long has New Day been on the air?
About a year and change.
How long? You guys doing okay?
We're doing better than that, Mud. We're doing better than that.
Why are you spinning me? Why are you spinning me?
That's the truth.
I believed in the program. I believed we were crushing Al-Qaeda. We were crushing them with human source operations, with signals intercepts, with working with foreign security services. The paramilitary military operation in Afghanistan against the Taliban was stunningly successful. And I told the media, I didn't cherry pick them, ABC, CBS, NBC, New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, told them all, we are crushing it. Nobody in the report ever asked me. I stand by what that report says. Hell yeah, I saw what we did. I believed it. And by the way, here's a dirty secret. I was right. We did crush them.
Philip Mudd, thank you very much for coming forward with the candid responses to these questions. Appreciate you taking the opportunity.
Thank you.
Allison.
All right.